The Apps Alchemy podcast is a Mind Garden Media podcast in association with
Screw You, Todd
Productions. This is the Apps Alchemy podcast with Damon, Sue, and Amy Lynn. They'll take a deep dive into the world of the paranormal, cryptids, the occult, and more. These seasoned paranormal investigators have seen and heard it all. It's time to share with you.
So this is Apps Alchemy Season 4, Episode 3. The disappearance of Sara Anne Wood is what we're going to be talking about tonight. I am Damon.
I'm Jen.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Christina.
And I'm Amy Lynn.
Sara Anne Wood, born March 4th, 1981, disappeared August 18th, 1993, was a major case and a hot topic around northern New York State for many, many years. And we're going to try and cram this into one episode. All right.
I've just got to start out by saying that this occurred, her home was maybe 5 to 10 miles away from where I grew up. I was a senior in high school that year, and the whole town was just paralyzed in fear that someone was out there, taking young children. It was terrifying.
I don't recall much of this story, but what creeps me out a lot of it is at the time frame, I was around the same age as this girl.
Yeah.
She was literally born 3 weeks before me.
Yeah.
So, and then the fact that she has the same name as me is just, there's very creepy about this.
Yeah, I was going to say, because because she's born 4 months before I was born. And I know that from the news I do remember about it, they were kind of comparing how she went missing and the tactics to some of the bigger name serial killer type stuff like Zodiac and stuff like that for a little while.
Well, because they had no idea.
Yeah.
And I remember this vividly. I was a senior in high school. It was my job to pick up my little sister from middle school. She was the same age as Sara Anne Wood, and I was maybe 5 minutes late because of the school bus traffic. I found my sister wandering around outside the school because they wouldn't let the kids wait inside for their families to pick them up. So when I went in to pick her up, I went into the main office and lost it. I'm like, how can you justify letting a 12-year-old girl walk around outside the building unsupervised when all of this just went down? So it was a hot topic in the community I grew up in.
So she disappeared the same time frame that my brother was bornish.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
He's 6 years older than me, so I had no.
Yeah.
I saw the after impact of this growing up. I never actually saw the impact of this
I was
tragedy.
going to say, you're slightly on the younger side to remember the story.
Well, I sat down for the session tonight and I saw her picture up. And my heart skipped a beat because it brings you right back to that.
Well,
the emotional, are they going to find her alive?
and she was literally the poster child for the girl in the milk carton stuff for years.
Yep.
At least in New York State, she was. I'm not sure how much of that news made it out towards your neck of the woods, Christina, but at least for around here in the state, probably even the tri-state area, this was hot news for a few years.
I was gonna say, I recognize the bike and the legacy, the bike marathons they've done from
Bike Ride for Missing Children. Yep.
Well, that picture is I want to say it was on several magazines too. The picture that's on the wiki article.
It was out everywhere.
I remember growing up and seeing it on posters, so I recognized the picture and I recognized the name. I just never fully knew the whole story.
And what was the most terrifying thing about it is that this was a rural neighborhood. This wasn't the city. This was a type of neighborhood where kids played outside all day long. Nobody worried about a 12-year-old out and about by themselves on their way home 3 minutes from their house. It really sent the community into a state of terror. We weren't allowed outside. They didn't allow us to go out on playground. I mean, it was crazy, just crazy.
I don't specifically remember the case, but I'm older than everybody else in here. So I was already raising my own kid at that point.
Yeah.
But I was also 6 states away. And
you were right.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure how far the news spread on this. I know
I'm sure that it spread everywhere because, we had the the kids on the milk cartons. We had all of that, but I don't specifically remember this case. What struck me when I was reading about this case is that hers isn't the only missing body. There was a boy who was abducted, and his body's missing too.
Yeah, he refused to give up any information on where he left them or buried them or whatever.
I mean, I live in Wisconsin. It's kind of the world of serial killers here. So
I mean, he kind of sent them on like a wild goose chase up to the small town of like Inlet in the Adirondacks, saying that that's where they were buried. He drew a map and all this stuff, but then it comes back that it was all a bunch of BS.
Oh yeah, he was totally screwing them for years. He was trying to prolong things, and he was screwing with them doing it.
And one thing I do remember when it finally got to court, and he had not identified where the bodies were. I don't know if this made the news, but there was talk that they were considering offering him a plea deal if he, offered up where his victims were buried or what he did with the bodies. And obviously that never happened. I don't know if it was because they said no ultimately to the plea, and he said, well, screw you, I'm not going to help anybody, or he just continually said, screw you, I'm not going to help anybody.
Well, from the article I read, he definitely didn't want to admit to where Sara Anne Wood was buried, because apparently she was buried next to somebody else that he had unalive, and he didn't want them to find that person.
Yeah.
So who that person is, we don't know.
Who knows how many
I assume it's another 12-year-old child, because he seems to be very consistent with the age group that he takes.
Yeah, the article said 12 to 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it says he refused the plea bargain from Herkimer County District Attorney.
Yeah. Oh, so they did offer it to him.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
I mean, I was in high school. I paid attention, but I didn't know the intricacies of it. But I do remember that we had a conversation actually at the dinner table on that. All the while.
He confessed it. Well, it's up to 2013, he confessed to 3 murders.
Yeah.
Yeah. The third one was a 16-year-old.
Oh, wow.
From Massachusetts.
So this is a small rural area, right?
Yeah, very small.
So was the middle and high school all the same building?
I don't remember, honestly.
Because he was a janitor. I wonder if these were all students there that he attacked.
Does it say he was a janitor?
No, he was a janitor at the movie theater.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think he was a janitor.
It wasn't at the school.
It was just a janitor, a theater janitor. Yeah, he wasn't.
But I mean, he may have seen her out and about the community, but...
James Bernard boy that he also took, was he from the same area or was he from a different area?
I believe he was also.
So James Lusher was from Westfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, no, then it was not local.
That's one of them.
Uh-huh.
James Bernardo.
He was outside the movie theater where he worked as a janitor.
That was in Newfield, New York.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure where Newfield is in comparison to.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to ask how far away Newfield is.
I don't know where it is. So it's
obviously
very close.
Newfield is further west and south of, it's near Ithaca.
Yeah.
Southwest of Ithaca. So it's still ways away from Utica. But
it's
not by much.
I was going to maybe hour and a half.
Couple hours, yeah. Tompkins County. So it's like the next county over. 2 counties over. And then the attempted abduction, there was one more. There are 2 sets.
Yeah, it was a girl.
Savarises, which he got 20 years imprisonment for. Rebecca Savarise held her at gunpoint.
Which he pled guilty.
She faked an asthma attack to get away from him.
Yeah, he pled guilty to the attempted kidnapping of her and then the murder of Sara Anne Wood and James Bernardo. But other than that, he didn't plead guilty to anybody else.
Oh, I remember where her picture was most famous. She was on, they put her on 48 Hours in America's Most Wanted.
Yeah, I remember.
That's where I remember it from. Because it was, I remember it like plain as day. I almost want to say it was on Unsolved Mysteries too, maybe.
Yeah, it's a good possibility. It was sad. It was very, very sad. I mean,
I feel like, I mean, granted, we're not that far from the Adirondacks and we're a few hours north from Utica and that area. But I remember a poster going around or a poster being hung up in different convenience stores and things like that is kind of a warning, like this is going on kind of idea, And I mean, granted, I grew up in a small neighborhood too, in small towns. And I didn't really feel necessarily the impact, but I feel like people were a lot more aware of when like a vehicle would stop, or had weird people lingering at playgrounds and things.
We were all not allowed out like months.
I feel like
parents were scared.
I feel like she was the poster child for missing exploited children in New York for years, and I do remember her being a missing poster of her like post offices all over the state.
Well, there's multiple organizations in the Utica area that work for missing children, and it was a direct result of this case that they then continued to carry on, obviously, after it was determined that she was dead.
It says nationwide outreach. By the week following her disappearance, the efforts to recover her alive or deceased had expanded statewide, then nationwide. All developments pertaining to the search were relayed to an improvised headquarters named the Rescue Sarah Center in New Hartford, New York. Thousands of missing persons posters were circulated across America, and appeals and updates regarding Sarah's abduction were broadcast upon 48 hours, and America's Most Wanted.
I mean, can you imagine being a parent and you think where you live is safe?
$150,000 reward.
And you let your 12-year-old daughter out and about and she doesn't come home? I mean, as a mom, that's terrifying.
So I'm going to be, because I'm looking at it from like a standpoint of like, I'm just hearing about this and like,
which you kind of are.
Yeah. And I'm reading that he brought her to the Adirondack Mountains and buried her in a shallow grave on a clearing near Racket.
That's what he confessed to.
Yeah.
And they never found her body.
I remember they went and they dug and they dug and they dug and nothing.
How many times have we heard stories of people going missing in that lake and never being
near
found?
Racket Lake?
Yeah.
Well, it goes all the way back to,
It didn't happen near Racket Lake.
I know, but he claimed it did. That's where she's trying to play devil's advocate too. He was just going by, I'm sure it's more of he heard other people that were found or went missing in that area. So he, decided to, make that a location of convenience to send him on a wild goose chase.
I'm pretty sure he admitted that afterwards that whole story was BS. It was
a scam.
And that he refused to tell them.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, did he use Racket Lake because he's heard the stories previously?
Probably.
Maybe.
Because he said Lent supposedly claimed that Sarah had not actually been buried in the location close to Racket Lake, although he refused to disclose the actual whereabouts of her remains, claiming that he buried another victim's body close to hers, which he did not want to be found.
It could be a lie too, for all we know.
Well,
at the same time, he obviously knew that area well enough to be able to fake draw them a map and be specific at the location of where she would. Because if he'd never been to that area and he just only heard stories, he wouldn't have been able to draw them a map. So I'm sure he's probably buried someone up there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You could have found a map of Racket Lake because it's a popular lake.
I would say in the Utica area, I mean, the Adirondacks are where everybody goes. So for someone to know a particular area in the Adirondacks, a trail, this or that, is not uncommon. I mean, we went to our regular places, and I was going to say,
I mean, you come in off the Amtrak train at the Union Station in Utica, and you can find a pamphlet for everything all the way up to Canada sitting on the magazine racks over there.
Mm-hmm.
And this was even before the Adirondack Scenic was a thing coming out of Utica Station. You just jump off the Amtrak and everything's there. Plus, there was a Trailways hub there.
Yeah. It was a popular area.
From what the history I've heard from Susie and the history I hear from just living in Tupper Lake itself, like the history of Racket Lake is extensive. Like, I know there's cabins and places that people go camping all the time.
Yeah.
And it's like public camping.
Yeah. And don't forget, that's not very far from where Chester Gilletti did what he done did.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Those mountains have stories, let me tell you.
So, I mean, it's for, like Sarah said, for him to be able to draw a map means he had knowledge of the area.
Yeah.
Whether or not she was exactly where he put her or where he claimed she was, obviously she wasn't, but there's nothing that says she's not somewhere in the 50-mile radius of that particular area.
Is he still alive?
I believe no.
Oh.
I was going to say, Racket Lake is so extensive.
Oh, is he still in prison?
He would still be.
I think so. I think that's what I read.
Yeah, he got life in prison. I know that. I just didn't know if he was still
Well, he
alive.
got life in prison for the murder of that boy. He got 25 years for Sarah.
Oh. I wonder why that was.
No body.
No body.
Yep.
No body, no crime.
Well, there you go. That's why he wouldn't say, I know where the body is.
Well, no, because he claimed that there was another body with hers, and that would have.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how much worse it could have gotten. There's no death penalty in New York State, is there?
No.
You can't get more.
I don't know at the time.
At the time, I don't remember, but
I think at the time back then, I think there still was.
I believe lethal injection was still a thing.
Yeah.
And I believe that would have been capital murder if they had found.
I don't know how recently they switched it to.
It was a while ago. I just don't remember when.
So I have a question.
Answers.
All right. So just playing devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
What if he didn't kill her? What if he sold her?
Oh.
That's crazy, Christina, because I was thinking that's why he was making up this story and all these lies and all this stuff that he wouldn't admit is because he sold her to trafficking.
That's what I was
Oh my
thinking.
God, I just got chills. I never even thought of that.
Actually, it says right here. Yep. Death penalty was abolished in 2007, so it was legal.
I was going to say, I remember my mom and dad having a conversation about the death penalty.
Yes, it was legal up till 2007. I just looked it up. Then they reversed their decision on capital punishment.
But going back to,
if there was that many deaths, it would have been considered capital murder, and he would have definitely gotten.
Yeah, but I never thought about selling
either
her
Old
thing.
Sparky or the needle. But yeah,
Well, you have to think he has an age group, specific age group that he takes.
And how many did he get that nobody knows about?
It's not just a spontaneous spur of the moment act of opportunity kind of thing. He is specifically taking children of a certain age. That right there to me, red flag trafficking.
Yeah.
That's where I got it too. That red flagged for me as well.
Wow.
I didn't even think of that, but it's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that like there are he claims there's multiple bodies.
Either. Just an FYI.
She was riding her bike near her home.
She was riding her bike from the church that her father was a pastor at back home. And she was carrying a church songbook and a vacation Bible school literature.
And that's not like, that's like in the middle of nowhere. You're talking like country roads. There's a couple. He would literally have to have planned where she was going to be.
Frankfort, New York, which is like.
That's not near it. That's wrong.
That's where it says she was.
Which if her father worked at the church,
she
probably biked this path on a regular basis. Yep. He probably saw her multiple times.
Well, that's what I was saying. This isn't a place where there's a bunch of kids running around and he just grabbed one. You have to put effort into figuring out when that kid is going to be accessible.
2016, the population was only 7,400 and change. So it's rural, quite rural. Her bike was discovered leaning against a tree several yards from the Hackham Road in Frankfort, New York.
Well, okay. So going back to his confession, I wonder if it's a half-truth then. What if he sold her in or near the town inlet? And the meeting place was by the Racket River.
Oh, that could...
It was Racket Lake. It wasn't inlet.
He's familiar with the area and he'd be able to draw them a map.
I mean, if we're going with the theory that he sold her, that opens up any possibility of where he could have done it.
Well, I mean, they never closed the case.
Right.
This is still technically, it's a unsolved / cold case. It's not closed. It won't be closed until she's reached, obvious age of death.
Yeah.
And if my old ass is still alive at the ripe age of 42, her ass is still alive at the ripe age of 42.
Right.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like I say, she was only 3 weeks older than me.
My brain is going in 10 miles in different directions. The fact that, like, if she was taken and was sold to trafficking, where was she sent? Why did, she was well known. Like, her picture was everywhere.
They could have changed her appearance easily, though. I mean, a 12-year-old put a wig on her.
Dye her hair as simple as that.
And by the time he drew them the map and gave them the location of where to look, she would have had plenty of time to get her out of the country and somewhere else.
I was going to say,
we're pretty close to the Canadian border.
I was going to say, it's close enough to the Canadian border, and it's close enough to either ship her to Greenland or something like there, or even have her ship across Canada to Russia.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they could have sent her down south to Honduras or something like that. South America.
Going across the border. So,
I mean, she could have gone anywhere. I mean,
I feel like if he was abducting and sending her south, he would have gone more southern New York.
No.
He went where he was comfortable.
Do you realize how many people come in through Ogdensburg Port on a regular basis from Mexico?
Oh, you're true. Yeah.
I was going to say Messina is a big one, and so is
Messina
Point gets hit a lot with people being smuggled.
If you walk through Walmart in Ogdensburg or Walmart in Messina, the main language is more Spanish than it is English. Trust me.
You're not wrong. Not wrong.
Because he confessed to her. When did he confess to her?
Well, and if he confessed to
you also those international locks in the Messina.
That's what we're talking about, and that ties into the port in Ogdensburg too. That's all in the St. Lawrence Seaway, which, I mean, more people come up through there than they actually do the Mexican border. Let's be real about this. But I'm trying to figure out when he actually confessed, and that gives him plenty of time to actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just lost my.
Yeah, I don't have the date when he confessed.
1996 was when he was tried.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the confession could have been a decoy.
Because you have to think he didn't get arrested and confess until he tried to kidnap that other girl. So a few years had gone by. She could have been anywhere at this point.
Here we go. 9 days after pleading guilty for Bernardo's murder on October 25th, 1996, Lent pleaded guilty to Sarah's abduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he pled guilty to the abduction, not the murder. Because no body.
No, abduction, rape, and murder.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he confessed to it, but they still have yet to find a body. So therefore, until a body is found,
it's an open case.
She ain't dead.
Yeah.
Let's think back to CSI and NCIS.
The fact that she could be in some foreign country somewhere, still suffering.
Another thing is, I'm going to be that person. A lot of places, like if they have, basically she's a slave at that point. She's been sold into slavery. If they become useless or they're too old, a lot of times they'll kill them.
Yeah. That was my thing.
So it says, as of 2023, her body remains undiscovered. Her family continues to hope her body will be found and that she will be given a Christian burial close to her family members.
But what Amy Lynn was saying is, if she was, sold somewhere, like she said, someone else could have killed her someplace we don't even know about.
Yeah, she could be anywhere. Alive or dead, she could be anywhere.
Makes you wonder how many kids that we don't know about found that same fate, and we don't even know to look for them or where to look for them. Scary.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to disappear somebody somewhere on the planet that isn't getting the news from where they disappeared.
Oh, and like I said, it was so rural. Nobody thought anything like that would ever happen.
I mean, and like you were saying, Christina, is like you're 6 states away. You barely knew anything of it at the time.
Yeah.
Right.
So it didn't, even though it was nationwide, I mean, not as much people as you'd think watches 48 Hours and Unsolved Mysteries.
A lot of people, if it's not
America's Most
near
Wanted,
them, they're not really going to pay attention.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's unfortunately, it's a huge mindset with a lot of people.
And back then, getting in and out of Canada, all you had to have was a license. I mean, they'd let anybody in and out. I remember. And
a note from your parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally. I used to do camporees with the Boy Scouts, and all you needed was a note from my parent.
Yep.
Well, back then, too, a case like this was not really common. So people wouldn't have been on high alert about this. So, I mean, if she was taken out of the state, nobody would have thought twice about it.
Yeah, there wasn't Amber Alert back then.
And there was no internet. There was no texting. There was none of that. So, I mean, it was just that much easier to get a kid out.
Well, they even said, I mean, some of the stuff came across through teletype. That's how old this is they were still using teletype in police stations.
I think email just came into school that year. And it was
I was going to say, there was internet. It just wasn't widely accessed.
Yeah, well, not in our school. Look, we didn't.
Unless you wanted to pay 99 cents a month for that.
I had to be like, internet existed for quite some time at that point. It wasn't a common access.
It was pay per minute. It was AOL.
It was
that
not
came
common
in the mail.
and accessible to most people, basically.
Yeah,
right.
It was just coming into existence, and but
wasn't that when text messages were also like a pay per message thing?
That was
pay per character you used.
That was
well, and that's what I was saying is they still use teletype within police stations, so that's how old it is. It came across the wire, kind of stuff. So but yeah, this is definitely an interesting one, and obviously a lot more questions than what we have time for.
I remember having prayer services for her, hoping that they'd find her alive at the local churches and stuff.
I know it turned a dark turn, but like when it comes to like these kind of stories, it's going to have a dark turn when it comes to questions.
Yeah.
You got to think of the worst in a lot of situations to figure things out.
But all right, so we're going to wrap this. Obviously, it's 30 years later, but she could still be out there somewhere, whether in the States or otherwise.
Yeah, one more thing that I'm just going to throw out there just for fun is that even though she was 12 when she was kidnapped, I mean, it's pretty easy to convince someone that they're not who they are. She may be living a perfectly normal life somewhere as somebody else, not even knowing she'd been kidnapped.
Yep.
At
her age, that would be very easy to do.
Yep.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll have another cold case or another unsolved mystery or something in 2 weeks. I think next week we'll be doing some weird news, so stay tuned for that. We're going to try and do some weird news once a month ish. Thanks for tuning in. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
You can find the Apps Alchemy podcast on any of the platforms that you normally find your podcasts, including YouTube. Be sure to like Apps Alchemy on Facebook to keep up on the latest goings-on, including each week's episode. Check out our website at appsparanormal.org, and you can email us right from there. And find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok under Apps Paranormal. You can also join our Facebook group, Apps Alchemists, for more fun. Apps Alchemists is a safe space to share your thoughts, feelings, ideas, and random inappropriate memes without judgment. And finally, if you're thinking about starting your own podcast and just aren't sure where to start, Mind Garden Media can help with that. Sandy and Todd from Mind Garden Media can guide you every step of the way in your podcasting journey. Editing, producing, and consulting is what they do. Like Mind Garden Media on Facebook or email them at themindgardenmedia@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening to the Apps Alchemy podcast. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and review us. And check out our next episode coming soon.
We make podcasting easy. Mind Garden Media can get you going on your very own podcast. With many years in the broadcast and audio industry, Mind Garden Media can edit, fully produce, and provide all the web distribution services. We're podcasters too, so we'll guide you every step of the way to a professional sounding podcast production. For information, email themindgardenmedia@gmail.com. themindgardenmedia@gmail.com.